What's up, guys? Today we're prepping for the CFI Checkride, and we're going to talk about human behavior and effective communication. What is it? Basic human needs, as well as defense mechanisms and effective communication. Why do we care? Because learning is a change of behavior as a result of experience. To successfully accomplish the task of helping bring about change in behavior, the instructor must know how and why people act the way that they do. We're going to cover definitions of human behavior, human needs and motivation, defense mechanisms, learner emotional reactions, basic elements of communication, barriers to effective communication, and developing communication skills. Let's start off with the definitions of human behavior. Really, what we're trying to do is understand how and why humans function the way that we do. And there are three definitions we really worry about. There's the scientific world definition, which says that human behavior is a product of factors that cause people to act in predictable ways. The satisfying needs definition says that behavior is the result of attempts to satisfy certain needs in a specific order. And the life course of humans definition, as humans grow, behavior changes. And that makes sense. As a baby, we really care about food and safety. And then we progress as adults. We want different things and our behavior changes. Then there's our personality types. The Myers-Briggs personality says that random variations in behavior is structured due to different perception and judgment. We're going to cover instructor and learner relationship. As an instructor, we must adapt our teaching style to effectively fit the learner's learning style as much as possible. And we want to learn how to control the human behavior. It's in the instructor's responsibility to know what controls are best and to create an atmosphere that inspires learners. We should have a working knowledge of behavior so that can help us better understand our learners and motivate them correctly. Let's talk about the hierarchy of human needs. This is an organization of human needs into levels of importance, and it starts at the bottom with the most basic needs. We need physiological needs. This is going to be our food, water, the very basics of life, just to keep us alive. So that's physiological needs. Next is the security needs. We need shelter, a place to live. We need to understand that we are going to be safe wherever we are, and we're not going to be, in danger of dying. Next is belonging. We want to belong to a group or a tribe. And as we get higher and higher in the needs, we need to satisfy this need to belong. Next is our esteem. The learner will try to satisfy their esteem or self-esteem or external esteem by doing things that make them feel proud of what they've done or get them recognition from their tribe. And then there's the cognitive and aesthetic. This is the need to know what is going on and understand the world around us. And then finally, the self-actualizing. This is the idea that we are doing what we were meant to do, right? We get to the point where we are fulfilling our purpose in life. That is the self-actualizing. And so what this means is learners will try to satisfy these needs, and they will be motivated to satisfy these needs. So as the instructor, we got to make sure that they are well fed, they feel safe, they belong to your flight school, or they belong to their family. You are recognizing their achievements and then helping them understand how everything fits in to their learning process, and then finally help them realize their ultimate purpose, and they can self-actualize. We need to help learners satisfy their needs in a manner that will create a healthy learning environment. So again, pay attention to what your learner is presenting and help them satisfy those needs. Let's talk about defense mechanisms. These are subconscious, almost automatic, ego-protecting reactions to unpleasant situations. We're going to cover repression, denial, compensation, projection, rationalization, reaction formation, fantasy, and displacement. Now, repression. This is when the learner will take uncomfortable thoughts and they place them in inaccessible areas of the unconscious mind, and they will avoid facing them, right? So again, we have this unconscious desire to avoid painful or uncomfortable thoughts in our mind or uncomfortable situations. So repression is a way for the learner to not have to face things that hurt them in the past. Then there's denial. This is the refusal to accept a reality because it is too threatening. We might have had an accident or might have screwed something up, and we refuse to face it because we are afraid of the harm that it's going to cause us internally or externally. Then there's compensation. This is trying to disguise a weak quality by emphasizing a more positive one. And of course, we've seen people with giant lifted trucks. We say, oh, there must be compensating for something. Well, in aviation, that could be that, well, I really suck at steep turns. But you know what? I'm really good at the knowledge exam. Or vice versa. I suck at the knowledge part, but I'm a really good pilot, so I can fly my way out of any problems. Then there's projection. This is when we blame others for our own shortcomings and mistakes. So you might have a problem with your knowledge exam, and then you go project that problem onto somebody else and say, you have that problem with the knowledge exam. So again, this is blaming others for your own shortcomings and mistakes, or blaming, like maybe blaming your instructor for your shortcomings. Rationalization. This is when you try to justify what you've done so that it would seem acceptable by everybody else. You could say, you flew up into IFR conditions or freezing conditions, and you could try to rationalize it saying, oh, well, it's okay because my instructor said it was fine, or for whatever reason you are trying to rationalize something that you did incorrectly. Then there's reaction formation. This is to protect us from dangerous desires by developing opposite attitudes and behaviors. I joke about this one all the time. If the weather's really crappy, I might say something like, oh, well, I didn't want to fly anyways, or being a pilot's for chumps anyways. This is, again, claiming you have the opposite view or opposite attitude towards something that you actually do care about. And there's fantasy. I'm sure we've all fallen victim to this one. This is daydreaming about how things should be rather than doing something about how they are. So instead of going out and studying for your exam or practicing your maneuvers, you just daydream about being a fighter pilot, or you daydream about being a commercial pilot. It's fine to think about how cool it's going to be when you get there, but don't forget to, live in the now and work towards that ultimate goal. Then there's displacement. This is an unconscious shift in emotion from the original object to a less threatening substitute. From what I understand, it's like if you had a really bad day at work and then you can't yell at your boss because that would get you in trouble. So you come home and you yell at your wife. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but you're displacing the problem you have at work and putting it on somebody else or another safer person that you can yell at. Let's talk about emotional reactions now. There are healthy and unhealthy or normal and abnormal emotional reactions to stress. There's anxiety. This is a state of mental uneasiness arising from fear. And we've all been anxious before, going into an exam or going into a check ride. Impatience, getting tired of how long things are taking. You are seeking only the ultimate objective without considering the means to reach it. We have to recognize that in aviation, it can feel like it takes forever to get your wings. We have to show the learner why every individual part of your training actually matters, and they should enjoy where they are in their career. And there's worry or lack of interest. If a learner is worried or emotionally upset, they might not be ready to learn. So we must recognize that and address whatever issues that they're facing. Physical discomfort, illness, fatigue, and dehydration. These, of course, will slow the rate of learning. And we talked about that before in our hierarchy of needs. If you haven't satisfied your thirst, hunger, rest, your shelter, you're going to be focused on that and not be able to pay attention to the lesson. Apathy due to inadequate instruction. Your instruction should be meaningful and accurate. So as the instructor, it's our responsibility to know what we're talking about so that it's actually beneficial for our learners. Then there's normal stress reactions, like we said before. People respond rapidly and exactly in the limits of their training. So in my experience, students will fall back on their training rather than rise to an occasion. And this is something that we practice in the military all the time. There's something called battle drills. Every infantryman studies and memorizes these certain set of actions so that they can react immediately to a situation. A battle drill is defined as a collective action rapidly executed without applying a deliberate decision-making process. That means that if we take contact, the entire platoon knows that, all right, we're going to lay down a cover fire, we're going to flank, and then execute a squad attack. This is a battle drill. Every infantryman knows how to do this without having to think about it. And that's a good thing. We want to train our our learners so that they fall back on their training and they can trust what they've learned to get them through the problem. Then there's abnormal stress reactions. Responses are random, illogical, completely absent, or inadequate. If you've had a learner who's just been overwhelmed with a situation, they might start cackling. They might start laughing about what's going on because they're just super uncomfortable. Or they might do something crazy like completely mentally shut down or start sobbing uncontrollably. These are abnormal stress reactions, and we should get them back on the ground and address the situation. And it's our responsibility to recognize when a learner is having a lot of abnormal reactions to stress and to determine whether or not they should continue training, whether or not they should continue to earn their pilot certificate. The best thing you can do is to stop instructing your learner and then go find another flight instructor to go fly with them. Don't tell them anything that you said or that you notice about them. Just say, hey, would you mind taking my student pilot and flying with them for a little bit? And then afterwards, get offline and be like, hey, what'd you think about that student? Did you notice anything weird? And then if you and the other instructor decide to escalate, you can go to the FSDO or whoever and do something about it. Remember, you are not a psychologist. You're not a doctor, unless you are, of course. But typically CFIs aren't doctors. So it's not our place to diagnose healthy or unhealthy pilots. It's our place to refer them to the appropriate authority, right? Cool. Let's talk about communication. Communication doesn't occur automatically. A style must be developed to convey information. We measure the effectiveness of our communication by the similarity between the idea being transmitted and the idea received. Did you get your point across to your learner? That is that's how we measure whether or not your communication was effective. Let's talk about the elements of communication. There's you, the instructor. There's the symbol, words or signs used to transmit information, hearing, seeing, touching, our presentation here, and then, of course, the receiver, the learner. Are they receiving what you are putting down? Now, there are some barriers to effective communication. There's a lack of common experience. This is the single greatest barrier to effective communication. If I tell you I need a quantum spanner, and you're like, I have no idea what that is, that's going to make it really difficult for us to effectively communicate. Then there's confusion between the symbol and the symbolized object. When I memorize these lectures or these topics, I have a very goofy way of memorizing things. I use a memory palace, and if you guys are interested, I can tell you about how I do that. But I use a memory palace, and if I were to put up pictures of what I have in my mind that represent what I'm talking about, there's a good chance you would have no clue how that has to do with anything that we're talking about. And that's confusion between the symbol and the symbolized object. This results when the meaning or intent of words is not clear, like sarcasm. There's the overuse of abstractions. The abstractions do not necessarily evoke the same items of experience in the learner's mind. And then external factors like physical pain, discomfort, hunger, thirst, our entire hierarchy of needs, right? And then there's interference. Interference occurs when the message gets disrupted or truncated. So we want to be careful and make sure that our learners are accepting what we're telling them and that they are incorporating it into their knowledge base. A good way to make sure is to give them quizzes or try to have them incorporate what they've learned into their training process. Let's talk about developing communication skills. There's role-playing, instructional communication, listening, questioning, and instructional enhancement. Role-playing, I actually really like doing role-playing. I will have the student pilot sit and be like, all right, we're going to talk through the flight. You be the pilot. I'm going to be the air traffic controller, or I'll be, another pilot in the area. And then we're just going to run through a scenario. This is a great way for the student pilot to get some practice on the ground in a safe environment. Instructional communication. You, the instructor, need to know your topic well. You need to be a subject matter expert, or a SME, when it comes to your topics. You got to be able to come up to the student knowing your stuff. If they see that you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to have a hard time getting them to listen, right? Listening. Be a good listener. So I'm actually reading a book right now about how to best serve the learner, and the whole key point of it is to serve the reader. Serve the reader. Whenever you're writing a book, whenever you're teaching a class, whenever you are providing some video like what I'm doing here, the goal is not to boost your own ego. It's to serve the reader. You need to provide so much value that they see that you actually genuinely care about them. So as instructors, be a good listener. Listen to understand and don't refute what they're saying. Try to see where they're coming from and then adjust what you're teaching so that it helps them understand why it's important and how it affects them. And then questioning. It's always a good idea to ask good questions. These can help you understand or determine if the learner understands what you're teaching them. And you don't want to be asking yes or no questions. Typically, open-ended questions are the best way to go. Let them share what they've learned, and then that can help you figure out what gaps you need to fill. Then there's instructional enhancement. The deeper the instructor's knowledge, the better they can convey it. And that makes sense, right? If you have a very basic level of understanding of your topic, it's going to be really hard or really difficult for you to share or to go into depth with your learner. If you know it like the back of your hand, if you are a SME, if you're a subject matter expert, you can shift and better... What's the word I'm looking for? You can better illustrate what you're trying to say because you have a deeper understanding of the subject. Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Any questions? We covered human behavior and communication skills. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Send me a message on Discord. Shoot me a text, whatever you got to do. Again, we're just practicing for the CFI Checkride, so I'm going to keep making these videos to improve my own understanding of the topics and to help you study for your CFI Checkride. If you have any questions, shoot them down in the comments or shoot me a DM. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.